Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new Sensibility podcast. My guest today is Violet Van Hees. She's a long-time Feldenkrais practitioner, also studied somatic experiencing and Tellington Touch, among other things. Today, the subject that we are going to talk about is Feldenkrais and its approach to working with emotions. And Violet, I think, is very skilled at talking about this subject. So I'm looking forward to going into it and exploring how, and what emotions are, and how we can work with them through the lens of the Feldenkrais method. Just before I introduce Violet, or she, I give pass it over to her to maybe do a bit of a longer introduction. Can I also just take the time to say, if you are watching this video, please like the channel, subscribe to the channel, and like the video. It really helps us to build recognition, and also to grow awareness of the Feldenkrais method, which hopefully, if you're watching this, is something you're interested in. That being said, Violet, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for coming and talking to me. And I look forward to getting into this juicy subject. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I love this topic, so I'm happy to be here and happy to talk about this.
Great. Do you want to just maybe give a slightly longer introduction, like, what's sort of why this is a subject that you've kind of looked into more deeply, or, like why that you wanted to kind of talk about this subject specifically?
Yeah, I've been working with movement and exploring movement for me and helping people explore movement and get better at they want since I was a teenager in this whole thing. And I love being able to do stuff and I love helping people to do the things that you love to do, that you want for yourself. And I'm really interested in how we learn and how we're able to tap into the intelligence in our own bodies to help support learning and what happens. I'm always curious about what goes on that makes learning easier or makes learning harder, and what kinds of things show up that can influence that, and how we can make learning easier, because the Feldenkrais work is all about learning stuff. And so the topic of what's happening in our physiology and our nervous system, and how we can work either with our body and how intelligent our body is, or we can work against it, and it has been of interest to me for a long time. And there's lots of information available now around that. And today I'll share a couple of snippets about what it is that's going on that makes learning easier or makes it harder. And then a couple of things that we can all do if we're noticing that we're getting into the place where learning is harder and we want to make it feel safer, feel better, feel easier.
Sounds great. Sounds very practical as well as informative.
And
Um,
I'll be bringing in, I work a lot with animals. And
mhm.
so I'll be bringing in examples from horses in particular, and dogs and other animals. And some examples too that just help make it real. We can sort of see it in animals more easily. And it's like, oh yeah, I get it if I think of that. So that's the reason I'll be bringing that in, and just
Mm.
inviting you to kind of go out and look at your world and look at who's around you and look at the animals around you, to kind of explore this yourself
Yeah.
as you start to think about it, right? It's fun.
So with that said, maybe we'll start off with a question, just sort of introducing the subject. Why why is working with emotions important, and what can the Feldenkrais method do to help that? And maybe that is a kind of launching pad for the slides that you have.
Sure. Yeah, I've got like 9 slides that I'll share here, and to give an introduction for that. And
Mm,
then after that, we can open it up and just chat.
great.
So
Sounds
I'll
good.
share my screen. Whoops, I'm in the wrong slide. Here we go. I'm at the
Perfect.
start now. Okay. Is that good? Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that. Yep. Good to go.
Okay. Yeah, so today we're talking about, Feldenkrais experiences, taking part in Feldenkrais learning stuff and working with emotions, especially big emotions, and how that influences our capacity to really benefit from the Feldenkrais work. And so we're really interested in how do we open the door to learning new things? Because the Feldenkrais work is all about learning. And one of the things that's become really apparent over decades of research and looking into learning and work and how humans learn is that one of the things that blocks learning is not feeling safe. Basically, anytime you don't feel safe, it's like the shutters come down and your whole physiology, your whole self goes into what you know and how you've done it to survive and stay alive until now. And so the learning space for new things is really small when you don't feel safe. So it's important to sort of notice with the emotions that are going on. If you're experiencing emotions or things come up, are you starting to experience a level of concern that feels not safe? And feeling not safe, like emotions can be great. Emotions make life rich and good and exciting and all those things. And they give us, the contrast in emotions help us really notice what's great and what's not great and all those things. But if you have too much of something, an experience that's too big, or it's too fast, or there's too much to process, so something happens and you're not able to kind of process it, then your body experiences that as something that could be dangerous or something that causes a level of concern that then feels not safe. So that's what we're going to look at a little bit is sort of how can you notice that and why does that matter? And what are some things you can do if you're starting to feel that you're not safe and that there's a level of concern that's too big? And in the Feldenkrais work, sometimes people say, or, people have asked me, why does feeling safe matter so much? I should be able to think I'm safe and then it gets better. But the feeling safe business, Moshe Feldenkrais himself knew about this. And he said in one of his early trainings there, if there is no safety, your nervous system will not do silly things. And when he was talking about silly things, it basically means anything that's not directly related to survival. So when you're feeling concerned, you can learn about the things that can help you survive better. But anything like learning to move more easily or stand on your head on the beach this is, Ben Gurion in Israel, who he taught to do this as part of a long process of learning about movement and what capacity do we have. Anything that's learning to dance, learning to surf, learning to do the things you love, that's not going to happen. Learning Feldenkrais lessons, most of them, if you're busy trying to stay alive. And another person who has done a lot of work and was a real pioneer in the area of bringing nervous system safety, the importance of nervous system safety forward, was Dr. Stephen Porges, who developed the polyvagal theory, which is, there's two different big branches in a parasympathetic nervous system, one that operates when we feel safe, another one that operates when we don't feel safe. And in one of his most recent books, that's one of the most understandable books, he's named it the Pocket Guide to Polyvagal Theory, the transformative power of feeling safe. And so this feeling safe business is really where the learning can happen that opens up new choices, opens up new options rather than doing the things you know. If you want to learn something new, it's important that we feel safe and that the emotions that we have can support that kind of learning to happen. How are we doing so far there?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So I'm going to borrow from the Tellington Touch work. So Linda Tellington Jones has worked for her whole lifetime with animals. She's became a Feldenkrais practitioner, and during her Feldenkrais training, started to really pay attention to the principles of how do we learn and how do we notice what's good and what's not. And then start to boil down some of these things into some concepts that I think are really helpful because they're simple, they're understandable. And so when we experience concern in the body, we experience what are called the 5 F's in the Tellington Touch work. And there's several of them that happen in the action side of our nervous system, the sort of sympathetic nervous system that supports action and doing things and being energized about things. And these are the ones that we know about most. And this is like the fight response. So if you feel concern, you might sort of fight or push away or try to move it away from you. There's flight, which is the running away business. And there's another one that's useful to know about because we do it a lot. And it's the fidget or the fool around or the fussing stuff. So someone that plays with their hair, or if you find yourself, twiddling your hands or tapping your foot or doing things where your body is doing something, that's often an indication that there's some concern going on, or you can check if it is. And your body's doing something that's acceptable in that moment. You can't actually run away and you can't fight, but you can do something. So you do this little fiddling thing that's going on, fussing or fidgeting. So those are in the action response areas, showing concern. Then there's also ways of showing concern in the slow down aspect of our nervous system, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. And I'll note in a minute that this is different from rest and digest. People think a lot of we've been taught, slowing down, every slowing down is a good thing. It puts you back into rest and digest, but that's not so. There's a couple of responses that are danger responses in our body, where our body goes into the danger response mode, that are slowing down kinds of responses. One of them is called freeze. And it's sort of where you get numb, you shut down responses to the world, you sort of numb your experience of the world, and people will look like they're kind of like just shutting out a lot of things. You can be very functional and very busy out in the world in freeze. You're just not feeling a lot. And you're not responding in a way that's fully engaged in your happy part of your nervous system. It's a concern response that's running. An extreme version of slowing down when there's real concern is the faint or the collapse, like when people or animals faint, and because it's just too much, there's nothing else they can do. They can't get out of it, they can't run, so they just kind of collapse in that moment. And as I said, these states here, these slowing down states are really different from rest and digest in the nervous system, which is when you're in your side of your nerve, your part of your whole response inside you, where things feel good and feel safe, you'll go into rest and digest when you slow down. If you're not feeling safe and you need to slow down because your body needs to conserve energy or whatever other reason there, you're going to be in a freeze or faint or collapse state. And there's a lot of people that spend a lot of time in this state, actually, and a lot of animals are in this state. It's more present than you sometimes think. And the challenge is when you feel too much concern in your body, your physiology is running differently. Your biology, your whole body system is swimming in stress hormones, stress chemistry, stress responses, and you can't rest and recover the same way as you can when you're feeling safe. You also can't learn because, I was talking about your body's busy with surviving. So it's like you've got the Bee Gees running, like, staying alive, staying alive. And that's what's going on in your body. And everything else is like, if it's not related to staying alive, your body doesn't want to learn about it or know about it. And so that's the block that happens to learning. And if you're coming into Feldenkrais lessons and wanting to have a lovely time learning the stuff there, and your body's too busy being concerned about, am I safe? Am I good? What's going on? All these things, the capacity to learn and absorb new stuff is limited. So just knowing that. And it's not you being crazy. It's not you being, uncooperative or anything. This is just your biology responding. This is a biological response, not a thinking brain response. It's sort of your body takes over. When you feel unsafe, your body takes over and starts to do things to try to keep you safe.
Just to kind of jump in at that point.
Yeah.
Maybe as a note for something that we want to kind of just discuss a bit more later. I'm wondering So if you're painting the picture that, it's sometimes the case that people are in this emotional state when they are approaching doing a Feldenkrais movement lesson, and that may make them feel uncomfortable
Yeah,
in bringing their attention to themselves or lying on the
absolutely.
floor. They may feel a racing heart, or their mind not be able to settle into the actual lesson and the instructions. So I'm just kind of wondering how you approach that when there is also like a potential solution in the method itself
Yeah,
that helps in the regulation process. So in doing the
yeah.
lessons, you go into a self-regulatory process, but sometimes it's difficult to begin those. So yeah, just adding that as something that I don't know if you touch on, but I'd like to discuss that with you. I don't know if now is good or we wait
I'll
and
mention it
yeah,
now and I'll add some more. Yeah, because there
great.
are things you can do. First thing is just noticing, and noticing, oh, I'm coming into this class, I'm coming into this situation, and I'm worried. I don't feel comfortable. I
Mm,
feel sort of edgy or itchy, and everybody else looks like they're wonderful and cool and groovy and all that. And, laying on the floor, and I get nervous about this. There's people around me, and I don't like laying on the floor, and there's people around me or something, right?
mm,
And it's kind of just acknowledging that that's what's going on. Even
mm,
just noticing this in yourself and saying, okay, so this is different in me, or I'm feeling this and I'm experiencing this. That starts to allow it to be seen. And then you can start to go, so what can I do that may let me check right here, right now, whether I am safe? Because we can tell, our little brain can tell our body whatever the little brain wants to tell the body. But if your physiology is not on board, then your physiology is going to say, I don't believe you. And you need time to check, is this true? Is it true that I am safe right now? Do I feel this? Which actually leads to the next slide perfectly. And then we'll
mm.
go into some solutions here,
Perfect. Yeah.
right? So we want to learn how to work with our smart body. And one of the things that I think is really helpful is to think about, for me anyways, is I sense that my whole physiology is kind of like a smart animal. We are very animal-like in our ability to notice how the world feels and what's going on and pay attention if we allow ourselves to sense what's going on in our body or say hello. Basically saying hello to everything from the neck down. Because for a lot of people, we spend time in our heads and sort of thinking about the world and what should be going on. But sometimes we don't take the time to actually check, what do I feel? What do I sense? And more than 80% of your information about what's going on in the world and is this good or not comes from the body up to the brain. So if we're shutting that down, we're missing a lot of information. So I always, I invite people, I invite everybody to, especially, humans, because animals do this, but humans sometimes don't. It's just to check in three places when you're asking, how do I feel? How does this feel? Is this okay? I check in the brain, the head, in the heart area, and in the gut. Gut feelings are real and they're very useful. It's the old vagus nerve circuit that really is working in the gut area and kind of lets you know in general terms, does this feel good or not? Does this feel safe or not? Right? And then there's a lot that goes on. There's big neural hubs in the chest, in the gut, and of course in the brain. And those hubs have a lot to tell us about, how does this feel? Do I feel safe? Do I feel okay? And if all three places say, yes, this is good, then learning is easy because everything is coherent and it feels safe, and all of you says yes. But if your clever little brain says yes, and the chest or the belly, the gut areas are going, no, why would I do that? This does not feel good. Then no matter how much your clever little brain says, I think it's a great idea, the rest of you is going to be sitting there kind of going, no, we're not doing this. I'm not taking this in. I'm not going to remember this. I'm not going to integrate this because it doesn't feel right. And so sometimes when learning is not happening, or when you feel your body, later on, I'll show an example where I'm learning something new, and part of me is going, yeah, and the other part's going, no, and it's yes, and no, and you've got that going on, then it can be tricky. And you want to navigate that and sort of work with your body to check it out in little tiny bits and see, is this okay? What's okay? Step in, step out, all those kinds of things. And we'll talk about some of those ways of being able to work with you, with your own inner intelligence. And it's really about, if you work with your smart body, learning happens faster. If you work against your smart body, you do a bunch of stuff, you don't retain it, and you can't figure out why. Why can't I remember this? Why am I not effective? Why am I not successful? And it's a helpful way to sort of check. Is there some place inside you that's going, because I don't like this and it doesn't feel good? Does that help as a
Yeah. Yeah.
partial answer?
Totally following. Yeah.
Okay. So, animals. This is from a little video that I did. I have videos on my website of things that I did on certain topics. This one is about feeling safe. And this was a very timid horse that lived out when I was up in the Yukon about 10 years ago and living up there. And Taku just did not like, he was worried about everything and had a very hard time being sort of calm and safe around people and even around the other horses. So, he was best when he was kind of off on the side and kind of just left with time to process and check out every moment. Is he okay? And so part of what you want to do when you're asking yourself is sort of imagine maybe your inner self is like an animal, like a horse, like a dog, like a cat, like some animal that you know and you can relate to. And it's kind of checking in with yourself about, does this feel okay or am I concerned? And when you're concerned, it's the key things in there really are like it for Taku here. It was to give yourself some choice, to have some freedom to move. And as you were saying, Joe, is to listen, to kind of listen and pay attention and notice, oh, there's something going on here. Maybe I can change something. And the way to deal with concern is to, if you notice that concern is blocking, is to, I mean, it seems so simple, but it's kind of like, if you notice concern, change something. Because, one of the master instructors, Linda Tellington Jones's sister, Robin, says, when you change something, something changes, right? Which seems so simple, but it's so real and practical. It's like, allow something to change and see what's different. Is this better? Is this worse? And it lets your body kind of notice you've been listening. And that helps create safety. Simply noticing your own experience and trying out something different helps your nervous system to kind of calm down, just like an animal calms down when it has choice. Your body starts to calm down when you have some choice and you're doing something to change the level of concern. So, making into the practical stuff. So that's the theory back there. And now, what kinds of things can you do? What can you change? Well, there's a couple of great things. We'll do them a little bit in here. One of them. This is really key. In the Feldenkrais work, we work a lot with the support, finding support of your skeleton, your bones, connected to the ground. So is it possible? Do you have a sense of support? It's because often when we're concerned, we're kind of up, and it's kind of like, don't know, right? So one of the first things that's great to do is, we can try this here, is just take a breath in and then a big breath out and feel if there's bones for you to settle onto. So go ahead and just try that. Just take a breath in, and as you breathe out, just kind of check. Do you have bones that are like in there somewhere that can hold you up? And sometimes you do, and sometimes you might not. Sometimes you might feel you have bones. Sometimes you might not feel those bones in there, which can tell you a lot, right? And it's like, if you're not sure that you've got bones or whatever, then tap your heels on the ground. Just sort of tap your heels up and down, or tap your hand, on a surface here wiggle your sitting bones a bit and kind of find out, is there something in your body that's connecting to the ground, to the support that's under you? And can you land on that? And sometimes that out breath and just checking out, do you have support right here, right now, brings you a bit more into what's here right now. Am I safe right now? Because then you can ask that question. And it's different if you land on your bones than if you breathe out and you just kind of collapse. So we'll try that. But sometimes people think of a big out breath as a sigh where you just kind of give up or you collapse. And sort of feel what that feels like. And then take a breath in this time, and this time land on your bones. Find out, do you have bones? What's the difference when you land on bones? Where you kind of look for the bones versus the collapse. So what was your sense of that? The difference between those, Joe?
So for me, there's a very different, big difference between the two in terms of my internal feeling.
Yeah.
Like obviously I'm a Feldenkrais practitioner. I've spent some time, I've practiced Tai Chi for a long time. I have some relative awareness of my skeletal system. Um, Doing it in a way that I'm breathing out and relaxing down, not paying attention to that. It's it kind of ties in with like an emotional state where it's kind of like like a giving up feeling. Like, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
can't. It's a weird feeling. And then when I do it, and I relax on my bones, it's like a fundamental safety that isn't intellectual. It's like something to do with gravity and being a physical organism, or I can't even put it into words, but it really feels different between doing those two.
Yeah. And we'll like we kind of do it spontaneously when I'm getting ready to go into something where I just want to be like ready, right?
Mhm.
Moving it, going to a room where I have to talk to people or something like that, or going in to work with a horse and the horse is a little bit up. I'll often do just to get ready and then I'll go in.
Mhm.
So it's something that we know about and it's something that's quick and easy to access if we need to. And it does, for me, makes me more right here, right now, right present in the moment, and I can see what's right there,
Mhm.
which is the great thing because a lot of the time concern is about anticipated worry, you
Mhm.
know, anticipated things that might happen. And if I breathe out and I land here, I can check what's actually here right now.
Mhm.
Am I okay? Am I safe in this moment? What can I do next? And so it's also the choice point of what can I do next now? What makes sense as my next step rather than trying to decide that from up here.
Yeah.
Once I'm here, it's like, okay, I can look at things a little differently from here. So
Mhm.
that's a really key one for people. You asked about coming into a class or something and
Mhm.
seeing if you're okay or what can you do. This is a key one. It's before you even move in to start the lesson or do anything. You can breathe out and you can do it like every 30 seconds
Yeah.
if you need to, right? Re Reestablish that little point where I can check. How
Yeah.
am I? Is this okay?
Can I
So that was,
just, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, really great. I'm so glad that you're kind of giving a practical application of this so that it's something that people can use, whether it's in a Feldenkrais lesson or outside in the rest of their lives, with, whatever they're experiencing. One thought that occurs to me just, from the last slide into this one is that when we talk about emotions and we talk about the maybe dysregulation in the nervous system, oftentimes through the lens of therapy, and this is something that we talked about in last month's sensibility podcast, through the lens of therapy, this is kind of connected in with your personal history and things that have happened to you in the past. And what I really like about this is that it's not dependent on any of that, you
that's
know?
right.
It's almost like you don't while it's true that that stuff's there, really just by working with what's going on in the present. You mentioned noticing and listening. Now you're giving a practical thing to listen to or notice. Um, that is purely in the moment and isn't dependent on any of the stuff that's happened in the past, you know?
Yes.
So that's a practical way of working with yourself in the present that is helpful to what's happened in the past and what you're going to do in the future, but isn't dependent on it. And I just wanted to kind of like mention that because I think it's a really interesting point with the subject of emotion is that we're not focusing on why emotion's there in some way. We're looking at how to work with it in a practical way in the present.
Yeah. And it's kind of a way to sort of land in a place where you can add a new layer of the what's actually present in this moment.
Mhm.
So it's not all the history, it's not all the stories, it's not all the anticipation of what might happen, which is all based on, this happened in the past, I expect this to happen in the future. It's kind of letting ourselves land right here on the ground and feeling the ground. It's feeling the ground under us as a support is actually very interesting because the ground has no judgment. The ground is just there and it supports us. And that's another nice thing to actually think about is like, oh, I'm on the ground and the ground is supporting me and I have a connection to it. And you can like put your head against the wall, put your hands on the wall, put your hands on the floor, feel the ground, tap your heels on the ground and kind of really say, hello, floor, hello, ground. And you can feel the ground meet you possibly if you want to. That's like we meet the floor meets us. And like that's here and that's what's here right now. And it does open a little window that's kind of like, okay, this is this moment in time. And I can check whether I am in fact safe right now versus what I expected might happen, or
Mhm.
my brain saying, of course I'm safe, right? Like your body gets to check what do I actually feel? What do I
Yeah.
sense? And what's here? And then I have a choice point. So when I looked at Taku, he has choice. He can move away, he can stay and eat, he can do other things, right? And when your body has choice, that matters. So
Mhm.
it's not actually a point of relaxation so much as a point of becoming just present and then having a choice about I could now relax, I could take action, I could
Mhm.
do this. I have choice.
Yeah.
And that's so important to the sense of safety in our nervous system.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like agency comes from safety,
Yeah,
you know? Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it's just creating that moment of checking, am I safe? If I'm not safe, then I can take action. We'll come into that in a moment. If there's something that feels like it needs attention.
Mhm.
So it's like the out breath, letting go of all the stuff that's around there and just see what's right here in this moment. And then what do I want to do with what I'm sensing? So you might sense, like, is there a movement or an action that you would want to take right now that helps you feel safe? So you asked about what to do in you know, coming into a personal session with a Feldenkrais practitioner or coming into a class. So I've sometimes as a practitioner, if I know that somebody is not feeling like I'm looking at them and going, their nervous system's a little concerned about being here. One of the first things I might do is say, would you like to know that you could get up and walk out of the room? You can leave at any time. And so I'll actually have the person stand up, walk out of the room, come back in, and physically do that. And that in somatic experiencing, it's sort of like a procedural memory or it's something that you want to do, but for us, it's just like it's following the pattern. In the Feldenkrais work, we'll follow what the body wants to do so it can kind of do that thing and then it's satisfied. So it's like there's the pattern of just, I really want to know I can get out of here. And it might be getting on the ground. You want to know you can get up and leave the room if you want to, if you're going to a class, or that you can get up and sit on the side. So allowing your body to actually do an action that helps you feel safe can let you come back into the situation again and kind of go, I know I have choice and I can get up if I want to. So now everything feels safer here and I can pay more attention and learn easier. Right? So that's one of the things. Is there a movement that helps you? And why not do it? So it's like following that impulse or that pattern of something, like in our body, our tightness patterns, our patterns of what we want to do are there for a reason. They were a good thing to do when we first started doing them, having this impulse. And this is your body trying to take care of you. This is listening to the rest of you and going, oh, you know, I want to do this. I want to get shorter, or I want to be like this rather than like this. So it's like following that, doing that, and this is how your body takes care of you. And then your body might be ready to open up or do something different. And Feldenkrais practitioners work with that. We follow the pattern so that we can open up into another pattern. But you as an individual can do this too. You can follow your own impulse or your pattern and then see if that makes you feel more at ease and more able to be present with what's going on. So I sort of just looked at some practical actions. It might be that you want to get up and walk out of the room. Might want to push something away, or sort of go to the action of pushing something away. Or you might want to hold something close. And that's the first thing that you have the impulse to do to make you feel better. So you might do that or hold something with big emotions. I had someone come in who, 80 years old, Brit, stiff upper lip all her life, and she was feeling these huge emotions. And they said it's sort of like toothpaste that's been about ready to burst out of you, and now it's coming out, and let's just let it be there and take care of it, right? So she was able to just hold something for a while, like 5-10 minutes of doing something and making these actions of doing that, at which point something felt very different for her. And it's like then she was able to sort of open up, and it felt different. She felt able to be present in a different way. A big emotion had been present. She had survived it. Sometimes we're taught, don't show emotions or don't show this or that, because, bad things might happen. And part of the experience is with a big emotion, is there an action, is there an emotion you can have? And then does the world still keep spinning? Are you still safe? Are you still here? Are you still able to be present with me or with the class that you're in? And is it okay? Are you okay? That question is so important to ask ourselves. Does this feel safe? I had somebody from one of my classes come to me, because I will often say to people, check, does this feel safe? And she said, my body this week said, it's so polite of you to ask. It's like asking, your bodies are so like, wow, I'm being asked for an opinion. I get to say something, right? And just being able to listen to your own self can sometimes be this huge experience. And you got to do it in little tiny bits so that it's not overwhelming in itself, that experience. You can open, it's like an animal, again, watching an animal. An animal will check something out in a tiny little bit and come back. And then sort of think about, how was that? My horse, when there's something new out in the field, everything new in the field is scary or suspicious. She will graze her way around and kind of look at it and graze her way closer. And I'll sit on the thing. Maybe it's a bale of hay that wasn't there. And I'll just go sit on it. And she'll eventually move her way up to it. And then she'll touch it. And then she'll kind of, but the whole time she's moving in, moving out, moving in, moving out, checking it out. And I'm sitting there just sort of touching and doing stuff. And she's watching me. And then she'll come up to it. And eventually she'll check it out and she'll go, it's a bale of hay. And I go, uh-huh. And she goes, oh. And then it's not scary anymore. And then it's fine, But she needs the time to move in and move out and check it out in little tiny bits, because otherwise it's too scary to check it all out. She'll just sort of run away from it. So if we can sort of tap into our body in a similar way and allow ourselves to check out a new experience in little bits and move in and out and in and out, our nervous system gets to check in bite-sized pieces. Does this feel okay? Am I actually okay? So again, in a class, it might mean that you're going to, first times in the class, you spend your time on the outside edge over here. I'm going to lay on the floor over here, way over here. And then eventually you might move in and change your position, or you might move a little closer to the center, or you might interact with someone or whatever, but you allow it to happen in little tiny pieces and you just check, is this okay? Is this okay here in this situation now? Because that's each time it's going to be here in this situation now. And it will, that will become how you get to check out your world.
Just to add at that point, you're basically describing my own experience with being on a Feldenkrais training. So like the first, few months of being on a Feldenkrais training, really didn't like lying down in a group with people. It was not something I was used to doing, having experienced anxiety in my life. It really like I needed to like have tastes of it, continuous tastes of it that I felt, okay, I can engage with this. I've come out of it. I felt okay afterwards to keep going in, like you're saying, go in
Yep.
and out with it. And eventually it changed and I was very like to the point where I could fall asleep in a group,
Yeah.
a room full of people. And that had never been possible for me in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're really describing that my felt process. Yeah.
Perfect.
Mm,
And had you forced yourself in, I said, okay, I'm going to go, I'm going to be in the center of the room and be there, your whole body probably would have just been like this.
mm,
Like I'm not happy here, you know? And
yeah.
it might be, you could force yourself to do it. And humans try to make ourselves compliant and look successful. So a lot of the time we do stuff because we think we should. And so we think we're doing it and we think we're out there doing the right thing. And then we wonder why we're not benefiting from the situation or it doesn't feel good, right? And that's the part where you just want to check in with your inner intelligence. You're smart animal on the inside. We are smart animals on the inside. And sort of allow yourself to figure out, if I was watching a horse in this situation or watching a dog, sometimes it's easier to imagine an animal. What would they do to check out if this is okay or not? You know?
Mm,
And most of the time they'll do, somatic experiencing. I think they talk about, uh, just the moving in and out with Tellington Touch. We talk about chunking it down. Chunk it down into little manageable bits that feel okay. So that your whole body can kind of go, hey, that was okay. Because once something feels okay, once it feels safe or it feels okay for you, then you're ready for the next little bit.
mm,
And each time you're ready for the next little bit. And that will generate progress a lot faster than doing something that feels too scary. And then your whole body, your whole self kind of pulls back and goes, oh, I didn't like that. And then it's much harder to re-engage with it. Whereas if you do little tiny bits and you check it out, then you can step into it more and more and you get used to asking, is this okay? And used to figuring out, how do I change little bits? How do I do this? So I
mm.
can change something so something changes.
It occurs to me at this point just to kind of like I'm not even sure if it's like a congratulation to anyone that's like actually able to pay attention to themselves like this,
Yeah.
because a lot of people are living with this stuff active in their nervous system and their emotions and their mental state, and they just aren't able to or haven't learned how to be aware of this, you know?
And it can be
So
freaky.
yeah,
It
yeah.
can be freaky to sort of check in with your body and realize your body's going, right? Or that your body has ideas, that
Mhm,
something from here down has things to say that are not easy. And so that's a key thing. Yes, it's huge. And
mhm,
Stephen Porges is actually, like in his book, he used to write very, very technical stuff because he's writing for scientists. Now he's writing for lay people. And
mhm,
he says, you are your own hero if you are even able to say hello to your body and start to
mhm.
befriend your body a little bit.
Yeah.
And for me, a key part of that is learning that the things that are going on here are here for a useful purpose. Everything that we're doing because it was a good thing to do. It was the best thing we could figure out at the time we started doing it. And so it was smart at that time, and it's your body taking care of you. It's your whole physiology taking care of you in the best way you could figure out how.
Mhm,
So we get to say thank you. Thank you,
mhm,
body, for taking care of me. So good. And then finding out, can I add more choices, more options now so that I can keep on doing what I've been doing and I have some more choice. And I want to know, my body, my physiology wants to know, is the new choice, does it feel safe? Is it a good fit for me? Is it something I can imagine me doing? And is it useful? Does it actually help me do the thing that my old pattern was doing in terms of taking care of me? Does it help me do that as least as well? So that I am safe in the world now and I have more choice and it's useful. And this is so key, right? Because it's one of the reasons patterns stick around is because the pattern, the movement pattern we've been doing, or the way we've held our posture, the way we've held ourselves, the thing we do has been the way that I've kept myself safe in the world.
Mm.
And doing something new might feel like too much. So there was one person I worked with who was very much rounded to the front, and she had the experience of opening up and being here. And then you could kind of see in her, like being here, it's like, but I can't be out in the world like this. So she came back to here before the end of the class, right? I was sort of like, and she kind of noticed this. And humans have this built in, it's our self-image. In Feldenkrais stuff, we talk about our self-image, how we see ourselves in the world. And this is different. This is one thing that's very different if you notice, if you work with animals or look at animals. So when I work with a horse and they feel something new and it feels good and they walk off and they do it, I have rarely seen a horse that kind of all of a sudden goes, but I'm not that kind of horse, right? But with people, it's not uncommon to say, I'm not that kind of person in the world. I don't know how to be in the world like that. So that meant it was too big a change. So now you can chunk it down and make a smaller change. You can kind of go, okay, it doesn't mean I can't change. It just means that was too much. So, maybe using your Feldenkrais class or training example, starting on the edge of the room, maybe moving into the center of the room a week in would have been too much at that time. So you move back out again, or you move into the center of the row at the back, right? So it's sort of like just modulating what you do so that it feels like the right size, the bite size that you can manage that works for you, and sort of noticing your body being smart about taking care of you and thanking yourself all the time instead of beating ourselves up. That's a key part. It's sort of like, be amazed that we're alive and we've survived life and we're here. Be amazed at your smart body and say thank you, and how can I create more choice that feels good.
Mm.
So that actually takes me to this slide, which is how I worked with this. The pictures are sort of how I worked with this. So I messed up my knee big time a bunch of years ago. And I used to be a whitewater canoeer and whitewater kayaker and those kinds of things. And I couldn't do that with my knee anymore, which made me very sad. But I figured out I can stand up. So I learned to paddleboard. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to learn how to go back on moving water with my paddleboard. But it was a process of little tiny steps. And so I started first on the lake, and then I came into the river in the area, and there's a big calm pool of water down here, moving water here, and a little bit of white water there. So I spent several months hanging out in this area, just going into here and getting used to in the calm, moving in and out a little bit, eventually kind of going into the bits there, but taking my time and feeling what felt good in that moment to do. Can I handle this? How am I doing? How am I physiologically doing with this? So it was fun rather than scary. And that's a big indicator. If there's fun and curiosity, that means you're in the good side or the learning side of of your nervous system and your body physiology. Fun and curiosity are good. Scared and kind of like, how do I get out of this? Indicates you're in the too much concern side of the body. So you can make it manageable by chunking it down and into little tiny pieces that bring out your curiosity. And you get to step in and step out. Talked in about that, go a little bit in, come back out again where it's safe, and then check, was that okay? Am I okay? Do I want to do that again? And the power of the pause. This is built into Feldenkrais classes a lot. We stop. We allow things we just sort of hang out and we wait for a bit. This is not just to sort of have a little rest. There's something very important that goes on during a pause. And our nervous system can check without new information coming in, am I okay? And there's another Tellington Touch person said something happens when nothing happens. And in the nervous system, like our gut, the old vagus nerve system in the gut takes some time to sort things out. And it works best when there's not new information coming in. So your gut feeling of, am I okay? Am I not okay? It's not very differentiated, but it's an overall feeling. Yes, no, good, not good. That happens when you have a moment to kind of just check without new stuff coming in. And then you get to listen to that, right? You get to pause and kind of go, you can do the out breath, land in your body and figure out what's the next step. What do I want to do now? Do I want to rest? Do I want to leave? Do I want to do something? Right? And it's like, what's the good size next step to take? Really important to give ourselves a pause. And that's the other nice thing about breathing out and landing on your bones. You get to pause and just kind of go, now what?
Just to add a thought that occurs to me, that it's like the method and the benefit of doing this is listening to yourself. So
Yes.
the method is that you're listening to yourself and that you can gain information and learn where you are. But the benefit of doing it is that you get better at listening to yourself and you become more attuned to yourself through listening to yourself over time.
Yeah.
So
And
that,
you experience that it helps you figure out how to feel safe.
yeah,
And the Feldenkrais work is all about listening to your own experiences, using that to guide you in terms of what suits you. And that's also something very different about the Feldenkrais work that we do. It's not an external thing that says this is the right thing for you and this is how you do it.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
more like here's some seeds of some experiences. See how it feels, see what works for you. How does this land in a way that makes sense in your own self,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And that's really key, and it is different and it can be scary. So there are people who are going to need teeniest tiniest little experiences of even just, what am I doing? For some people, even noticing, oh, how am I pressing my foot in the floor? That's all they can manage.
Yeah.
It's like, is my foot on the floor?
Yeah.
you know
I did I don't know whether it was like 6 months of volunteering in a homeless center in London. And I was kind of running mindfulness Feldenkrais sessions in that environment. And some people, I mean, there was one particular woman, she came in and I just knew straight away that she was not going to be able to sit for it. I started within like a minute or 2 minutes. She looked at me and I was like, absolutely fine if you need to go. If
Yep.
you need to go, if you need to leave, like absolutely fine. Don't worry. She just could not sit with it at that point.
Yes.
Um, there were other people that found it difficult, but they were able to sit with it and they worked and over time, they became more able to listen to themselves. But she wasn't in a state where that was possible for her. So I think it's kind of, it's good that we can recognize that that's an option as well. You know,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
can't listen to myself,
Walking
right?
out.
Yeah.
It's okay to say, I need to go now.
Yeah.
That was as much as I could take. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really important. I think also sometimes, like as a practitioner, sometimes I'll completely change lessons so that I'm just dealing with a practical solution to a survival need,
Mm.
right? So if the person is in survival, if the person I'm working with, is feeling really concerned, I'll do something that's directly related to taking care of that concern because that's what the
Mm.
body's paying attention to.
Yeah.
That's sort of, and they're going to be singing the Bee Gees song of staying alive unless it's something related to helping them stay alive.
Mm.
And then it becomes relevant. And so it's sort of, if I, for someone coming into a Feldenkrais class, again, it's sort of like what helps you feel like you can take care of yourself and you can take the steps you need to take care of yourself. And if that means leaving after 5 minutes, then that's okay. Or standing up and moving around, or,
Yeah.
people who can't stay still. I mean, a
Yeah.
classic place where this shows up is at the end of a nice class and everybody now lie on the floor and just enjoy being there, or at the start. same thing, just lie on the floor. And some people go, yay, I love lying on the floor. And other people are there like, I should like lying on the floor, and I don't.
Yeah.
I'm agitated. Right?
Yeah.
So it's then again kind of noticing, oh, I'm agitated.
Hmm.
I'm giving permission. You can sit up, you can look around, you can do things. If you need to, you can do these other things, or you can step out and move out if you need to.
Hmm.
It's kind of like being able to take care of yourself. And it's that permission to take care of yourself and becoming curious about, oh, I need to do something.
Hmm.
That starts to open up the doorway to maybe being able to create something new or shift something a little bit.
Yeah, really nice.
Yeah. And so the big thing is let the learning be fun. If you can get to the point where you can adjust, you can make the changes, you can change what you need to change so that the learning can be fun for you, that means you're in the sort of all is well side of your whole physiology here, that the learning doors are open and that new things can come in and you can learn to do silly things. So I moved into being able to sort of goof around on a little wave and do fun things that I like doing. And it was eventually I could get there because I had taken the steps and taken my time to be able to sort of build up the foundation of feeling, yes, it's here. I have the foundation. I have this. I have the safety. I can now do this and have fun. So that's it. So I would just like to give people the access to my website. There's some information there, some little videos there that I did several years ago on all sorts of topics. And if you're really interested in this topic and want to learn more, you're welcome to get in touch with me as well. I love this stuff.
I can tell. Yeah, I can tell.
Sharing.
Thank you so much. That was really, really good. I I feel like, I mean, specifically within the lens of the Feldenkrais method, I feel like that what you've described is a process or is available throughout a Feldenkrais lesson, so that you've got all of those moments of self-ref self-referential attention where you can just check in with yourself, if an instruction feels too much or you need a rest, for example, which is something that we encourage people to do a lot, to rest when they feel like they need a rest. Like that's something that you can kind of bake into like all the way through a lesson and like enrich your ability to learn in some
Yep.
way. So I like how you've described it. It feels very practical and something that you can apply, whether it's like in whatever field that you're exploring. But because we're talking about Feldenkrais, you can do it within a lesson.
Yes. And it's giving yourself permission that all these
Mm.
things help you to be able to figure out what suits you, what works for you, what new things can come in for you. So the rest, the pauses, the coming back into, dialing something back because it was too much, all those things are
Mm.
not you being unsuccessful or unable. It's you actually taking care of yourself and being a very smart learner in the
Mm.
process.
Yeah.
And it's sort of that sense of participation. The Feldenkrais lessons require us to be participating ourselves,
Mm.
right? And sort of figuring out how to do that in a way that becomes creative and you get to take care of you in in each step of the process and each moment of what's going on.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's super clear to me from the way that you've kind of broken it down. So that's really, really great. Is there anything else that you think is important that you would want to share with people before we kind of wrap this up?
No, I think the key thing is, like acknowledging the intelligence that's inside you. Say hello, hello, body, hello, amazing place. And if it makes it easier, you can imagine yourself being a smart animal, any animal that you know, that like it can be a dog, it can be a horse, it can be a cat, and just sort of imagining, okay, if if my nervous system has a lot going on that's similar to how animals might respond to the world, what's all this stuff, this information that can come in that can complement my clever little ideas, right? So I can bring in my full human experience into helping me figure out what makes this feel good, what makes this settle in well, but helps me learn something new in a way that's fun and feels good.
Yeah. And I guess that's a nice way to wrap this up is that, like, specifically when we're thinking of emotion, often that's um, got some kind of negative, not necessarily negative,
Mm,
but like difficult aspects to it. Emotions can be difficult. And that when we're framing this within the context of learning, that there's a sense that your emotional state can change and you can learn new ways of being in yourself that feel better than the previous ones. And I think
yes.
that's an important recognition, right?
And also, and you can harness as well. So some of the emotions, this is important, I think, some of the emotions that we think are not good, like anger or other things like that. If we think about, a lioness taking care of her cubs, or something where an animal will take care of something because they're fierce and they take a fierce action. There's a lot of life force or a lot of action capacity that comes through that, and it's kind of like finding out that you can tap into this, you
Mm.
can do something with it in a way that actually is feels safe. So you get to check it out, you get to experience something, and then you get to like have a moment of experiencing this and step back and go, ooh, how was that?
Mm.
Right? And it was like, okay, that was okay. And I can now use that. I can add that to my capacity to take action in the world. Rather than feeling I have to be like this, I can take
Yeah,
action. Yeah.
yeah. Which is like the I don't know, the like self-express like the self-expression is varied and beautiful, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That and it's a self I don't know, unfolding process, you know?
Yes. It makes us human.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the richness of the human experience in
yeah,
ways that become more accessible because we're just becoming more versatile. We're learning more ways to work with all that we have.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you.
been a pleasure.
It was
Um,
fun.
as Violet, would you mind just putting your screen with your website back up? Just to give people another chance to see that. So, as Violet said, if you want to get in contact with her, her email's there. For more information, you can visit her website. You can also, because this is part of the Sensibility newsletter, if you want to sign up for that, you can go to the feldenkrais.com website and sign up for the newsletter if you haven't done that already. And there will be an article written about Feldenkrais and emotions by another practitioner that if this is a subject that's interesting to you, please do go and check that out. Um, Thank you so much, Violet. Yeah, really nice to talk to you about this. I hope people have found this interesting and got something from it, which I think they should have. Yeah, really appreciate you doing this for us.
Great. Thank you very much for having me here.